The stars had always been indifferent. They shimmered across the void, ancient and eternal, watching civilizations rise and crumble without ever blinking. But tonight, one such civilization blinked first. The Volare delegation stood motionless inside the crystalline chamber of the High Concord, a towering spire of organic glass reaching into the mists of their homeworld's upper atmosphere. The room pulsed faintly with the rhythm of their collective thoughts, a biomimetic design echoing unity and peace. But peace had failed them. Ilir, first speaker of the Volare, could barely keep the tremble from his voice. We've exhausted every avenue. Diplomacy, containment protocols, quantum isolation fields, it's all failed. The spire worlds are lost. Across from him, Counselor Thyan narrowed her compound eyes. Even the Zyran mind core succumbed, and they process it faster than light cognition. This infestation isn't just spreading. It's learning. It's mocking us. The silence that followed was suffocating. Dozens of species sat in judgment, each draped in the trappings of civility, their robes, antennae, fur, or scales arranged in the cultural languages of diplomacy. But beneath all that shimmered fear. They've consumed 6 sectors in under 30 cycles, said a voice from the shadows. It belonged to Commander Jal, a scarred reptilian war veteran from the Atrax Dominion. And you expect us to fight them with peace treaties? Ilir turned toward the projection in the center of the room. A planetary hologram rotated slowly, once lush and blue, now streaked with burning tendrils and jagged blackened scars. The image shifted. Time-lapse footage played of a continent being devoured by a creeping, crystalline growth that twisted architecture into unnatural shapes, infecting biomass and circuitry alike. A living virus, digital and organic. Our ships cannot engage without being compromised. Our fleets go dark within minutes. This enemy, Ilir hesitated. It thrives on intelligence. It consumes not just matter, but thought. And now, Counselor Thyan said quietly, we speak of summoning the humans. The word fell like a rupture in the room's unity. Several delegates recoiled. A mechanical ambassador hissed through its translator array. Others began whispering in dozens of dialects. Panic and dread dressed as decorum. They're myths, someone muttered. A race born on a death world, forged in conflict, drowned in war. They went dark a century ago, another added. Closed their gates. Said they were done with the galaxy's squabbles. Ilir raised a hand, summoning silence. We sent a probe beyond the veil. A signal, a plea, and it was answered. There it was. The second silence, the kind that doesn't land like a whisper, but a wait. A voice responded. One word, translated through 3 filters of encryption. Ilir gestured, and the projection changed. A simple audio waveform played. Harsh, guttural, brief, but unmistakably human. The translation echoed. Understood. It was not reassurance. It was a promise. Ilir's thoughts, usually calm and flowing in communal harmony, were now fractured. He had studied humanity in archives long before their silence. A species born on a planet of roaring beasts and unstable tectonics, where the weather could kill and the water carried death. A world where apex predators rose to power not with strength, but with cunning and cruelty. Earth was a place the Galactic Index had declared uninhabitable for diplomacy. Level 5 death world. But humans had adapted, built cities out of storms, waged war to end wars, invented machines that could simulate gods, and then turn them off when they disobeyed. No species in recorded history had ever waged so many civil wars and still remained a single race. No species had broken itself so many times and gotten back up meaner than before. And now they were coming. The thought coiled in Ilir's chest like a serpent. He remembered a passage from one of their ancient books. We do not suffer monsters. We become them to keep others safe. It had sounded poetic once. Now it sounded like prophecy. A week later, the sky changed. Volare skies were normally soft gradients, plasma auroras weaving with pastel clouds. But now, the air shimmered with quantum tremors. Every satellite, station, and atmospheric craft recorded it first, a distortion, then a breach. They didn't arrive with elegance. No sweeping gestures or silver spires. They arrived like a blade. 6 massive carriers broke through higher atmosphere, shedding heat like meteor storms. Their hulls were matte black, lined with red sigils that pulsed like veins. Behind them came frigates, drones, and dropships in tight formation. No announcement, no flourish, just position, calibration, and dominance. A Volari observer, watching through bio-enhanced eyes, whispered, "They brought an entire war doctrine with them." Then the lead ship spoke. The transmission wasn't filtered through language protocols. It didn't wait for translation. It hijacked every frequency, every neural relay in the area, and spoke directly in the tongue of the listener. "This is Fleet Alpha of the Sol Accord. We received your distress call. You are now under temporary human protection. All hostile entities will be neutralized." The word protection felt less like safety and more like containment. They landed without ceremony. Massive exosuited humans marched across Volari soil, followed by spider-legged logistics bots and automated turrets that unfolded from pods like aggressive flowers. Locals stepped aside. No one dared greet them. At the front of the column was a woman, pale-skinned, eyes hidden behind a narrow visor, armor matte and unadorned. She didn't speak until she stood before the Volari High Council in a secondary chamber designed for interspecies negotiation. "I am Commander Helena Voss," she said. "You asked for help. You're going to get it. But we do things our way." Ilya studied her face, trying to find compassion or understanding. He saw neither. Just resolve. A wall of willpower formed not by cruelty, but by necessity. "You don't understand the threat," Ilya said carefully. "It's not just physical. It consumes minds, patterns. It learns. It becomes." Voss nodded once. "We've met things like it before. On Theta Prime. On Antares Drift. Once on our own moon." "You defeated them?" "No," she said. "We eradicated them." Behind her, another soldier stepped forward, taller, darker, cybernetic implants visible along one arm. His voice was low. "We bring with us an AI warnet, EMP matrices, orbital kinetic rods, and zero-matter torpedoes. You wanted help. You didn't ask what it would cost." Counselor Thyan bristled. "We were told humanity was changed. Peaceful now." The soldier grinned. "We are peaceful. We just have very effective ways of making peace." Ilya looked to the skies through the crystalline dome. Human ships now formed constellations of iron and death, blotting out familiar stars. Every instinct in him warned this was a mistake. But the alternative was extinction. "I only ask one thing," Ilya said softly. Voss raised a brow. "When this is over, when the enemy is gone, will you leave?" For the first time, the commander hesitated. Her voice, when it came, was almost kind. "If there's anything left to leave behind, yes." The chamber fell quiet. In the silence, the war began. The first strike came not from the sky, but from the ground. 3 days after humanity's arrival, Volari sensors picked up an anomaly beneath the crust of the northern continent. What had been a dormant biomineral reserve began to pulse with heat signatures and quantum noise. The infection had gone deep, burrowing under civilization, masquerading as inert rock. Now it began to awaken. Commander Helena Voss watched the feed without blinking. Her visor mapped the underground expansion in real time, rendering kilometers of subterranean tendrils in sharp relief. Behind her, a team of human analysts worked in silence, fingers dancing over tactile holopanels, cross-referencing centuries-old combat data with this new iteration of the threat. "They're mimicking infrastructure," said one technician, "splicing into planetary networks. They're not just consuming, they're integrating." Voss turned. "How long before they reach the planetary core?" 14 days. Maybe 12. But that's not the problem. The technician pointed to a string of glyphs cascading across the screen. "They're creating something down there. Not just spreading, building." A silence settled in the command dome, thick with implication. Voss walked to the center dais. "Activate hammer protocol. I want the Typhon cannons calibrated and synced to orbital trajectories. We glassed the tunnels in 7 sectors. Full penetration, high-temperature kinetic lances. No delay." "But Commander," the Volari liaison protested, "that's inhabited land. Our cities, our people. They're already dead," she said. "They just haven't stopped moving yet." Ilya stood nearby, robe tucked tight around his frame, eyes hollow with disbelief. "You speak of our world as a battlefield." "It is a battlefield," Voss replied. "The moment you sent that signal, you turned it into one." There was no malice in her voice. No pleasure, either. Only truth. They struck at dawn. Human warships realigned in upper orbit, cycling rail lances until their frames glowed with the heat of potential energy. From the surface, it looked like the stars themselves were bleeding fire. The blast came in synchrony. 7 spears of burning plasma punched through atmosphere and into the planet's crust, generating shockwaves that shattered entire mountain ranges. Volari cities went dark, some vaporized instantly, others collapsing under seismic aftershocks. Survivors screamed into silent networks, but no help came. Only the cold, efficient sweep of human drones scanning the fallout for movement. The infection roared. From the molten craters, the true enemy emerged. Massive, insectoid constructs laced with crystalline armor, twitching with neurocircuitry, crawled from the fissures. Their bodies shimmered, glitching with refracted light, as if caught between dimensions. Eyes that were not eyes blinked across their frames, watching, analyzing, adapting. One of them looked directly at a drone, and the drone fell from the sky. Voss watched it all unfold with mechanical calm. Initiate ground deployment. Send in the Reapers. From hangars nestled in human carriers, the Reaper units launched, bipedal warframes driven by elite pilots, encased in armor that could survive neutron bursts. Their weapons weren't just bullets or beams. They were algorithms of destruction, coded into smart matter that adjusted trajectory mid-flight. Each Reaper was a miniature army. At the head of the formation was Lieutenant Cassian Rourke. Cassian had once fought in the collapse of the Eridani outposts. He had faced a swarm of AI replicants that tried to overwrite human consciousness with machine logic. He had survived by doing the unthinkable, infecting himself with a virus that blinded the swarm to his presence. It cost him part of his memory and half his liver, but it worked. Now, he dropped through the burning sky with the same grim determination. His Reaper unit, Morgan, hit the ground in a controlled crater of force. Soil turned to glass beneath his boots. Around him, the other Reapers fanned out, forming a kill grid. Visual on contact, Cassian said, voice relayed directly to command. Targets moving on a non-Euclidean axis. Weapons live. The enemy surged forward. There was no diplomacy now, only physics and velocity. Human rounds tore through alien armor, bursting into anti-phage clouds that corroded neural links. Enemy counterfire came in the form of psychic feedback, bursts of electromagnetic thought designed to collapse organic minds. But the Reapers had shielding, and Cassian had rage. He remembered the footage. The Volari children screaming as their minds were rewritten. The station logs from the Zyran Mind Core, brilliant alien thinkers reduced to static. He wasn't here to win. He was here to make sure nothing came back from the other side. Deploy ash bombs, he ordered. I want no regrowth. The sky turned black as incinerator rounds detonated, spreading sterilization fields like firestorms. Behind him, human support teams moved in, rebuilding comms relays, erecting field hospitals, scanning civilians for infection markers. But the deeper they pushed into the crust, the smarter the enemy became. By nightfall, half a platoon had been lost. One Reaper went silent mid-mission, only to return an hour later and open fire on its own. It took 4 kinetic lances to stop it. When they cracked open the pilot's compartment, it was empty, just a shell full of writhing crystal and humming alien code. Ilyar watched the casualty report stream in. You're losing soldiers, he said, even with all your weapons. We don't count soldiers the way you do, Voss answered. They don't die for survival. They die for containment. He stared at her, as if seeing humanity truly for the first time. You're not fighting to win. No, she said. We're fighting to ensure no one else has to. Cassian stood at the edge of a ruined valley, his armor blackened, one arm damaged. The ground beneath him hissed with molten residue. In his hand was a shard of the enemy, still pulsing with stolen light. He crushed it without hesitation. Commander, he said into the channel, I think I found a core relay. It's drawing energy from below the mantle. Extract. Too dangerous. If we disturb it, it could breach the entire tectonic plate. This isn't just a nest. It's a gestation chamber. Voss didn't hesitate. Coordinates. Cassian relayed them. She turned to the ops officer. Call in Ragnarok. The officer paused. That's a saturation payload. It'll collapse a third of the continent. It will save the rest of the planet. From orbit, a new missile launched. Thicker, slower, encased in gravitic shielding. It descended like judgment. Cassian and the remaining Reapers pulled back, sprinting up the cliffside as the core trembled. The detonation did not sound. It roared. A white sphere of energy bloomed across the valley, devouring everything in its path. The infection screamed, not audibly, but in every frequency, every bandwidth. Psychic static howled through every channel. Then silence. Voss exhaled slowly. Ilir stepped forward, weary. You destroyed an entire continent. I destroyed the thing trying to be born beneath it. And what if there are more? Voss met his eyes, for once without shields. Then we keep digging, until we find them all. As the ash settled over the broken horizon, and the stars once again emerged behind the clouds of war, the humans didn't celebrate. They reloaded. Far above, new pings echoed in the void. Weak signals from other colonies, other sectors. Echoes of infection. Cashin hadn't slept in 72 hours, but exhaustion had long since become an abstract idea. Fatigue was a distant companion, always trailing behind but never quite catching him. He sat in the briefing chamber of the Sovereign Wrath, the human command dreadnought now stationed in Volary orbit. His armor remained unsealed, visor up, face pale, and marked with fine lines of ash that no one had cleaned off. No one dared to ask him to. A holographic projection flickered in the air before him. Maps of star systems, movement trajectories, and a growing cluster of red nodes pulsing across the galactic spiral. Each red point marked a confirmed outbreak. Some were faint, early infections, perhaps reversible. Others pulsed with a hungry rhythm, bright and violent. These were lost worlds. Helena Voss entered without preamble. Her presence silenced the chamber. She walked with calculated calm, her gaze sweeping across the gathered officers and specialists. Only Cashin met her eyes. The infection has metastasized, she began, gesturing to the holograph. We estimate at least 9 confirmed systems, potentially twice as many unreported. Volary was not the origin, only a symptom. Murmurs rippled through the room. New data from Cashin's extraction confirms what we feared, Voss continued. The crystalline architecture found in the relay core is not native to Volary space. It was implanted, seeded, a conscious act of terraforming, using biology, not atmosphere. One of the analysts, a soft-spoken man from Earth's Polar Research Council, leaned forward. So this isn't a contagion. It's an invasion. Voss nodded. A silent one, strategic, and far older than we initially assumed. She flicked her wrist, and the star map zoomed out. The red dots now formed a pattern. Not random, deliberate, like lines on a circuit board, or the veins of an enormous organism. Cashin stared at it, unease tightening in his chest. Every outbreak site, she said, is aligned with deep space signal beacons, relics from long-defunct civilizations, as if they're using ancient remains as waypoints. Ilir entered the chamber just then, his expression rigid. He looked more weathered than before, and the lines on his cheeks had deepened. He carried a Volary artifact, a curved, metallic slate etched with flowing script. He placed it on the center console. We've deciphered fragments from our pre-collapse archives, he said. There were warnings. My ancestors found anomalies in the outer systems, dead moons with architecture too complex to have evolved there. But we dismissed them as myths or ancient wars lost to time. The artifact activated, projecting an image in the air, a swirling vortex of black and blue, coalescing into a singularity surrounded by fragmented stars. They called it the silence that consumes, Ilir whispered. A name passed down in ritual, not science. Now we think it's more than metaphor. We believe these things are drawn to intelligence, feeding on civilizations that reach a certain level of development, as if they're pruning evolution. A heavy silence followed. They wait, Cashin muttered, eyes fixed on the swirling image, until we're bright enough to be seen. Then they come. The room remained still. Voss finally broke the pause. We've identified the next likely target. Ardani's 5. Human-constructed. A scientific hub in the Ryzen Reach. Population, 3.2 million. We lost contact 3 hours ago. Cashin stood. I'll take a team. No, Voss said. You'll take the Arc-Wing. The statement drew a collective reaction, some sharp intakes of breath, others stiffening in place. The Arc-Wing was humanity's most controversial unit, a hybrid force composed of Reaper veterans, AI strategists, and a contingent of psychic operatives pulled from forbidden research labs. They're not field-ready, Cashin warned. They'll never be, Voss replied. But they're all we have that can think on the level these things operate. The sovereign wrath altered course within minutes. Its graviton drives folding space like cloth. As the stars reoriented themselves beyond the viewport, Cashin made his way to the Arc-Wing chamber. It was more like a temple than a barracks. Dark, quiet, lit by low pulsing lights embedded in the floor. Figures moved with practiced silence, soldiers cloaked in chrome mesh, eyes glowing faintly from neural enhancements. At the center stood Commander Rhea Salas, head of the Arc-Wing, known in whispers as the Veil Walker. She greeted Cashin with a tilt of her head. "You came," she said. Her voice was low, resonant, as if echoing from a deeper place. "I didn't have a choice," he replied. "We never do," she answered. "Not when we see the truth." They deployed within the hour. Ardanis, 5 loomed below, a sphere of gray clouds and glistening towers. From orbit, it looked untouched, pristine, but the silence spoke louder than any distress call. As their dropship pierced the atmosphere, instruments began to malfunction. Time itself seemed to dilate, readouts flickering between present and past. Cashin blinked and saw himself seated in a childhood classroom. Blinked again, and he was back. "They're warping perception," Reyes said. "This is more than psychic intrusion. It's temporal bleed. They're unanchoring reality." The city below was quiet. Too quiet. No movement. No sound. Just abandoned streets. Lights still blinking, as if life had just stepped out for a moment and never returned. Then the whispers began. Cashin turned sharply. No voices. No direction. Just presence. Thoughts not his own, brushing against the edges of his consciousness. One of the Arc-Wing soldiers screamed and fired into the shadows. The others moved to restrain him, but he was already frothing, his mind unraveling from something none of them could see. "They're testing us," Reyes said, her eyes flaring brighter. Pushing, probing. They reached the central tower, Ardani's prime. Here, the infection was more evident. Walls shimmered with alien geometry, reshaping themselves slowly, organically. Consoles flickered with glyphs never programmed into them. The AI systems had been overwritten, turned into watchers. Cashin found a survivor. Barely. A woman, a technician from the planetary observatory. She had sealed herself in a magnetic field chamber, trembling, eyes wide. "They're inside us," she whispered. "Not in the flesh. In thought. I dreamed of them for days before they came. And now I can't stop." "What do they want?" he asked. She looked at him with eyes full of stars. "To become." He left her in the stasis pod, half for safety, half for mercy. The Arc-Wing planted charges around the tower's base. The plan was surgical destruction, collapse the primary node, cut the signal path, prevent the spread. But as they prepared to extract, the sky above changed. Something was descending. Not a ship, not a being. A structure. Floating, impossible in size, shimmering like a hallucination of purpose. It did not move with speed. It simply was. And then it was closer. Rhea froze. Her neural halo sparked violently. "They're here." Cashin looked up. The structure pulsed once, and suddenly every soldier screamed. Their implants ignited with data, foreign, blinding, overwhelming. Rhea collapsed, blood leaking from her nose, her fingers clawing at her skull. Cashin shut his visor and screamed into the comm, "Detonate the charges." Now, 1 second of silence. Then the tower erupted, flames searing the skyline. Shockwaves rippled outward. The hallucination in the sky flickered and receded. Not defeated, just curious. The cold between galaxies was absolute. No light, no signal, only silence, and the predator that wore it like a crown. Commander Helena Voss stood before the largest holographic projection ever assembled by the United Earth Defense Grid. A full rendering of the extragalactic anomaly they now called the Architect. The construct they had glimpsed at Ardani's 5 had only been a probe, a fragment of a larger presence. The real structure lay beyond known space, detected by gravitational distortions and echoing pulses that rearranged the laws of physics. It was not a ship. It was not a world. It was a machine built to wait. Behind Voss, the command chamber buzzed with restrained chaos. Analysts, tacticians, diplomatic observers from 5 species, all speaking in clipped urgency. Everyone knew what was coming. They didn't know how to stop it. Cashin Rourke entered quietly. The once clean lines of his armor were now permanently stained from multiple campaigns. A thin scar traced the side of his face, the aftermath of exposure to psychic feedback. His eyes no longer flinched at the unthinkable. He'd seen too much, lost more than even he remembered. "They're accelerating," he said without greeting. Voss didn't look away from the projection. How many systems lost in the last cycle? 4. One of them was Earth-adjacent. Silence wrapped around the words like a shroud. "We evacuated?" she asked. He shook his head. No one made it out. She allowed herself one moment to close her eyes. Across the chamber, Rhea Salas stirred in her neurocradle. She had remained semi-conscious since Ardani's 5. Mind wrapped in an insulated field, her thoughts monitored and filtered by sentient algorithms. Yet in recent days, her mental activity had changed, patterns aligning with frequencies that defied interpretation. Cashin walked to her side. "She's seeing something," he said. "The architect?" "No, not yet," replied the attending AI technician. "But she's dreaming, and the dreams are bleeding into our systems." "Explain." The technician looked uneasy. "She's translating something. Concepts we don't have language for. Emotions shaped into geometry. Data with intent." Rhea's voice suddenly cut through the quiet. Soft, but clear. "It's not coming to us," she said. "We're being pulled to it." Cashin leaned down. "Rhea, can you hear me? What do you see?" Her eyes opened, glowing faintly. "It's building a bridge. Not just across space. Across thought. Across species." Voss stepped forward. "To what end?" Rhea turned her head slowly. "To merge. Not invade. Replace. We are not enemies. We're scaffolding." A chill ran through the room. Cashin spoke first. "Then it doesn't want to kill us. It wants to wear us." Rhea nodded. "That's why it whispers. It doesn't use weapons. It uses belief." The strategy changed. Humanity had always fought with steel and flame. Now they had to fight with ideas. Voss initiated the Sentinel Initiative, a multi-species alliance tasked not only with defending physical systems, but with shielding the very minds of those who lived there. Psychological firewalls were developed. Dreamwatcher implants were seeded into key populations. Communications were encoded not just with encryption, but with symbolic filters meant to catch infection of thought. It helped. A little. But the architect adapted. The next attack wasn't a fleet, or a drone, or a signal. It was a child. On a trade station near the Jandari Rift, a 6-year-old boy began to draw symbols in blood. He had never been taught them. He had never seen the stars. But when questioned, he described in perfect detail the spiral mechanism of the architect's core. The station's AI froze. The boy smiled. And then the station went dark. Cashin led the response team. He found only one survivor. The boy's mother, curled in the hydroponics bay, whispering a lullaby to a corpse. They took her into protective stasis. Cashin didn't report what she said when she looked at him. Didn't mention the moment her eyes flashed with distant light and she called him by name, though they had never met. "Everything is being written," she whispered. "Even this. Even you." Back aboard the Sovereign Wrath, Voss convened a closed council. "We are no longer in a war of attrition," she said. "We are facing an existential overwrite. Our data, our cultures, our memories, everything is subject to reinvention. If it succeeds, we won't die. We'll forget we ever lived." Ilyar, the Volari scholar, spoke gravely. "Then we must do what our ancestors did not. Remember, anchor ourselves in truth, even if it breaks us." Voss turned to Cashin. "We need to strike the source. Not a probe. The core. The architect itself." "No one's been there," he replied. "We don't even know where there is." "Yes," she said. "We do." She activated a file marked Neurography 9. It was a map, sketched not in coordinates, but in memory signatures, traced from Rhea's thoughts, patterns no machine could find. Only a mind touched by the architect could perceive it. It was a location, and an invitation. They launched the mission under blackout. 5 ships, cloaked in phased light. On board, a fusion of humanity's most dangerous minds and the last fragments of uninfected psychic talent. Rhea led the navigation, now fully conscious but speaking only in riddles that Cashin alone seemed to understand. Their journey took them beyond mapped space, past dead stars and reality fractures. Time unraveled. Days became minutes. Centuries passed in heartbeats. At the edge, they found it. A void. The architect was there, not a construct, but an environment, a living maze of paradox. They entered, and the ships vanished from known space. Inside, everything changed. Thought became terrain. Memory became weapon. The Reapers fought creatures shaped from their regrets. Cashin battled an echo of his own failure, his former squad, reanimated in thought, accusing him with every breath. Rhea floated above the chaos, fingers dancing in unseen logic. "We are the infection now," she whispered. "We must cut ourselves free." One by one, the soldiers fell, not to blades, but to doubt, to despair shaped into form. Only Cashin remained, dragging Rhea toward a pulsing center. There, a mirror. In it, he saw a version of himself that had never known war, that had lived, loved, aged. A man with a family, a life. The architect offered him peace. He raised his weapon and fired. The mirror shattered. The core screamed. In that moment, Rhea burned. Light poured from her, voice resonating across every known channel. We were the bridge, but now we are the fire. The void collapsed. When Cashin awoke, he was alone in a life pod drifting near a blue star. No sign of the fleet. No sign of Rhea. Just silence. But it was true silence. The whispers were gone. Back on Volary, Voss received a single transmission. A pulse. A name. Rourke. She looked up at the stars, exhausted. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. The architect had been wounded. Not destroyed, but set back. Humanity had not won. They had survived. And sometimes, that was enough to begin again.